everybody. Thanks for coming. Can you hear me with okay, or should I talk louder? Guys here in the back okay? Okay. I love microphones so much. Okay, so anyway, so here we're going to talk. Oh, I have this slide here. I thought really great. This is a thing I saw on Twitter the other day. I'm going to read it to you because you may not be able to read it. It is a great quote. Mike's going to love it. I hate hiking with people. This is not me, by the way. It's someone else posted. I hate hiking with people who want to reach destinations or travel a certain distance. I love hiking with people who don't mind stopping every 30 feet to look inside rotten logs or photograph spiders or identify salamanders. People who hike for exercise confuse and terrify me. I joined an outdoors club in college, and it really sucked because all anyone wanted to do was get to the top of a mountain as quickly as possible, only stop to drink water and eat trail mix. It was awful. Ideal hiking companions: botanists, entomologists, mycologists, people with asthma, because they can't go fast, right? Children with ADHD, easily distractible dogs, Dakota, people with great butts who walk slightly faster than me. I could have written this. This thing is so great. I did join a hiking club, and I stayed with them for about not even a year because I was so bored. All they wanted to do was get really fast to the top of a peak and turn around and come back, and then say what an adventure they had. Now, great if that's what you're after, not what I'm after. Okay? I can spend 4 hours 30 feet from the car with my camera, and some of you have been with me, and I know Tom does the same thing. Okay. Also, so here's the title, right? You know the title by now. This arrived in my text message the other day. Emily, who works here, did a watercolor poster for this talk. Isn't that hilarious? Totally looks like that, yeah. So I had to come to the nursery and get a picture of me in front. I actually sent the picture to my mom, and she freaked out and said, I want it. I said, Mom, it's too big to send to you. I mean, look, it's on an easel. The thing is giant. It's probably on foam core. So I came here, and Emily said, no, it's not. It's little. So I reposed for the photo, because that's based on a photo of me from about 10 years ago, wearing the same jacket and hat. And this is the summer version. All right, that was great. Really nice of her. I am the author of Wildflowers of Orange County and the Santa Ana Mountains. Some of you have it. Others of you, they sell it here. All right, so what we're going to go over is habitat, whatever that is, habitat gardening, design basics, maintenance, and plant choices, and then finally some local critters, which is my favorite. Hopefully you all were here when one of the kids in the back showed everyone the 2 10-line June beetles that I brought in. Our largest June beetle. It's actually the largest June beetle in North America, and it happens to be very common right here. They're from my backyard. I live on the other side of that hill right over there. I'm not far away at all. So make sure you have a look. Oh, I think she left them back on the table, which is fine, because afterwards we're going to look at the plants, and the plants here, the plants there, and you can see the June beetles. They're very cool. Okay, so what is habitat? Well, habitat is a noun, and it means the natural home or environment of an animal, plant, or other organism. So habitat, very important to understand what that means. Informal use of the word is a person's usual or preferred surroundings. Like at 4:40 today, my habitat's going to be Irvine Spectrum watching the new Thor movie. Okay, that's a habitat too. All right, so here, gardening, this is habitat gardening. It's gardening or landscaping, if you prefer that term, to simulate the natural home or environment of multiple species of animals, plants, and other organisms. So we're basically imitating nature in a garden setting, which is completely possible to do. The goal is to increase species diversity in that garden, because you want more than just European which are not native, by the way, honeybees in your garden. You want native bees, native butterflies. You want all kinds of beautiful things. In my yard, which is a tract house, right, built in the 70s, every fifth house is identical, like a rubber stamp. I have 4 species of lizards. Can you say that? 4 species of lizards. I get birds all year round, butterflies all year round, hummingbirds especially all year round, because my yard is 100% California natives. In '99, when I bought this place, I ripped it all out, and I came here and gave Mike my paycheck forever. Okay, so we're after variety, right? We want a lot of diversity in our yard to make it interesting and fun to come home to. All right, this is a great example. I'm sorry that it's so bright in here. It's just really hard to darken a bright space. This is a house in beautiful Pasadena that is a beautiful home. It's Frank Lloyd Wright style, craftsman style from what, the 20s or so? And it's beautiful house, garbage yard, absolutely garbage yard. So this owner said, we need to do something about this. Hired my friend Barbara, who's Mike's friend too, who lives up that way and does native plant design. And she ripped out all of that landscape, planted beautiful native plants. Look at that. Their water bill dropped substantially. No lawn, all right? You do need to water natives, all right? Don't be fooled that they don't need water. They do need some water, all right? Especially first 2 years, need a little bit more water. After the 2 years, you can back off somewhat. Anyway, their water bill dropped significantly. Did you know 70 to 90% of your water bill is for your lawn, right? The place that your neighbor's dog goes to the bathroom that you never use in your front yard. Front lawns are hardly ever used by people. Okay, there's some empty seats over here. You can move one if you want. It's up to you. You can actually sit on that too. It's strong. Okay. All right. Anyway, here's one angle of this beautiful yard. Here's another angle of this beautiful yard. It is fantastic. They also upped their property value by doing this, because who doesn't want to look at that? It's gorgeous. What a brilliant design. Easy to take care of. And then there's this. I cried when my neighbor did this. They took out their front yard, which wasn't good to begin with, and they put in this plastic garbage, which, by the way, gets much hotter than anything else. I think it's hotter than concrete. It's really hot. Yeah, they didn't want to take care of a yard, but this is going too far. And then this is my house. All right, yeah, I let things get a little wild. I have trimmed things up a lot since this photo, and I forgot to replace it with a modern photo. But this needed a trim. I like the wild look. Yeah, I grow California grapes because of the insects that come to it. I don't grow it to eat the grapes. Don't care. I want the insects that eat the plant because they're beautiful. All right. Now here, this is also my yard. Mike's really going to want to see this, because in my yard, you'll notice something interesting, that in my front yard, there's a little dark pot down there. I'm going to zoom into that. See the little red right down there? This is an important thing that every yard needs to have, and that is the Mike Evans gnome that goes in your yard. For sale soon here at Tree of Life Nursery. I hope someday. Okay, now how do you plan for a native plant-based garden? How can you do that? Should you just go run to the store and just buy a bunch of plants and then take them home and then figure out where to put them? Oh, please no. That's not how you do interior design either, is it? If you've ever had someone come in, you don't just go in and, I'm going to go to Home Depot, I'm going to get some paint and go paint my living room. I got no idea what color I'm going to use or when I'm going to do it or if it's going to look good with my stuff. I'm just going to go get some paint. Oh, please don't do that. Same thing with planning your yard. You need to have a plot plan. It can just be a sketch with some measurements. Doesn't have to be fancy. This is what I use my drone for. Right above the house, take a few pictures, come back, pull it into Adobe Illustrator, trace it out, take my measurements, and I can do a scale diagram that way. It's super easy. A lot of other designers do that too. Okay, you need to learn a bit of ecology to really know what you're doing. And remember, the idea or the goal here is variety. You want variety, different species of plants in different kinds of locations in the yard. All right, so ecology. Well, ecology is a word that was invented in the 1800s. It doesn't go back that far. It's a noun, and it's the branch of biology that deals with the relationships of organisms to one another and to their physical surroundings. So you just need to know a little bit of ecology to use that information to plan out a good garden or the whole landscape that you're using. Applied ecology is a great term as well. This is using the knowledge and techniques of ecology to do or make something. Guess what? That includes farming. Farmers are applied ecologists. You really want to know what's going on in an area? Climate, rainfall, soil? Talk to a farmer. They know these things. They're amazing. Horticulture, same deal. It's applied ecology. Gardening, it's applied ecology. Okay, some resources. I just slipped this one in this week, and I thought, you know, I've gone over this. I've never had a full slide. This is on your handout too, so almost every word I say is on there, so you don't need to furiously take a bunch of notes. So a pioneer. Remember the pioneer days? I don't mean you were there. I mean the pioneer days we all hear about. Oh, the good old days. Yeah, when all your siblings died from everything, and there wasn't enough water, and most people didn't live past 40. Okay, so pioneer, this pioneer mentality, not necessarily a good thing, but the old pioneer mentality is they see the world as resources to exploit, and that those resources are limitless. We can take and take and take without putting a cap on it, without worrying about running out of stuff, because it seems to just never end. There's so many things. We can kill all of the passenger pigeons, and we did. Right? Free for the taking. This is an old mentality. Yeah, it still exists among a lot of people. Responsible is realizing that resources are there and you should appreciate them. So resources are to appreciate. And we know that resources are limited. There's only so much fresh water, right, Tom? There's only so much fresh water, right? There's only so much good soil we can farm on. I hear people all the time saying, let's expand into the desert and live there and farm there. The soil's wrong. And then in a garden, same deal, resources are to be mimicked. So if you want a native garden, you want to mimic those resources in your yard of the different soils and topography. Make a little hill, put a rock in, put a low spot in where water can collect, you know, the 4 hours a year we actually have rain. Okay, so here's California. Hope you've been there. California has lots of habitats for inspiration. If you ever hear anyone say, oh, I'd love to do a more natural garden, but I got no idea what to put there. Oh my gosh, take a hike. Go get outside, take a hike, look around. Go with someone that knows how to hike so you're safe. As I tell my students, I have students in college who have never gone on a hike. So I start off with a hike on campus. So they're nice and safe because so many people are afraid of snakes. Snakes aren't everywhere. They really aren't. All right. I say that, and my botany class, our very first hike, we went to Whiting Ranch, our second hike. This spring semester, we had 2 rattlesnakes mating in the parking lot at Whiting Ranch Park. Like, great. Right after I told them snakes aren't everywhere. 15 minutes later, we saw a red diamondback on the trail. It's like, I guess they are everywhere this year. And then at Irvine Regional Park, you know, where the zoo is, I had 2 rattlesnakes on the Horseshoe Loop Trail, which is at the edge of the picnic area, right? It's just slightly up from the picnic area. It's like, I better revise what I tell these guys. Snakes are everywhere. You need to pay attention. Okay, so grasslands. We have great grasslands. We have scrubland like chaparral and coastal sage scrub. We have deserts of beautiful plants. Kevin's going to tell you all about that in 2 weeks. And then woodlands like oak woodland and riparian woodlands, and then forests of many kinds. all kinds of great stuff. For example, here in Orange County, we have beautiful Casper's Park right next door, which has one of the last grasslands, native grasslands left in our area. Because, wow, wouldn't that be a great place to put attractive houses? And we have so far. Luckily, this is protected. That's right over there. And grasslands are home to many interesting plants and animals. For example, probably my favorite wildflower, Padre shooting star, who doesn't love that, lives in grasslands, and so does school bells, which happens to be on the cover of my book. You know, the book that you all need to go buy a copy of. Okay. And so here is coastal sage scrub on the ranch, right here on the ranch. I probably took it in a spot before you got here. You drove by this spot. All right, I got out and photographed this, and it's home to things like southern bush monkey flower. Who doesn't want that in their yard? Gorgeous thing. And then chaparral. This is up by the candy store, not far from here. This is chaparral, made up of mostly one species of plant for thousands of miles. But you get close to that plant, and you realize, oh my gosh, it has beautiful white flowers, and it's in the rose family, so it's got thousands of flowers, each one this big, in huge sprays, but they're just beautiful, beautiful plants. Oak woodlands have fantastic oaks. I probably don't need to give you a close-up photo of an oak. I'm just going to go right there. Coast live oak, most common oak in all of coastal side of California, all the way up to just north of San Francisco Bay. Fantastic oak. There's 2 species of oaks in here. We have riparian woodlands, which are along water courses. This is the Trabuco Trail, my favorite trail in all of the Santa Ana Mountains. It's beautiful up there. Multiple species of conifers. People don't realize, oh my gosh, we have a pine forest here? Yes, we do. We have 4 species of pines up there too. All right, and then here's another picture of a coniferous forest, right, with one on the right. This is also Trabuco Trail. It is the most fantastic trail in the entire mountain range. And then looking at plant species, here in California, Oregon, and Washington, we have more plant species than the entire eastern seaboard. Right? California's got about 7,000 species of plants. Oregon, 3,500. Washington, 3,500. Looking on the eastern seaboard, it's not that many. And most of the plants that are along the eastern seaboard are in more than one state. So you can't really add up all those numbers and go, but that adds up to more. No, they're almost the same plants in those states I colored orange. So not a lot of variety out there. For the space of California, we have more species of plants than all of the East. Okay, and there it is right there. Southern California has more species of plants than the entire eastern seaboard. That's a lot of plants. And Tom, my friend, who's a great birder, knows, how many birds could you recognize? What do you think? Okay, over 500. Not impressed, dude. Insect count as of 1978 was 30,000 species of insects in California. All but 2. Yeah. I discovered a couple of them, and some of them are named after me. Okay, so why so much variation here? And that's important to realize. Why is there variation like this here? What's the deal? Well, I like to do this. I say geology of California is very unique. We have more than one kind of geology, more than one kind of hard rock, bedrock. We have, serpentine and granite and sedimentary and igneous. We have lava, and we have lava tubes like Hawaii, but people don't realize it because they're in the desert and they're really hot. And guess what like to live in those lava tubes? Rattlesnakes love to live in those lava tubes. You got to be really careful going to them. Okay, so the geology influences the geography, the landforms, right? Hills, valleys, plains. And then the geography determines what plants can live there. The plants form habitats. Like think of a redwood forest. Bunch of redwood trees. That's a habitat. This is an oak woodland, totally different habitat. The species of plants form the habitat. Habitats are where all other life forms live. This slide is half a semester of an ecology class, all by itself, right there. That's all you need to know. Okay, every living thing has 4 basic needs. We call them B4, and that's food, water, shelter or space, call it what you want. And then those 3 things are individual needs. Every individual of every species needs those things. And then the 4th thing that every species needs is a species need, and that's to reproduce. All right, so individual and species needs. B4, those 4 things. You want to bring in some cool birds, lizards, frogs, toads, insects, butterflies, those feathery guys, and all those things. You've got to provide some of these things for them, and they'll come right in. Okay, so you want to provide variety. First off, in a native garden, variety is important. Don't just plant one species, yeah, but that's what chaparral looks like. It's all just chamise. Yeah, but you're able to pick and choose and put things in your garden that you want to. You can put in some chamise. Yeah, you can make it one species. It's a little boring, but you can make it one species. I would definitely mix that up. Okay, you want a variety of plants in terms of things that grow tall and things that grow medium and things that grow low. Mix up those different elevations, and that brings in a variety of things. You might think, well, I'm going to have plants here that birds will tear apart the seed heads to eat the seeds. Birds like to hide first. Birds have what we call a type 2 survival. Type 2 survival is probability of death is even. It's 50% every minute of your entire life. Ours? No. We have what's called type 1 survival. If after we survive infancy, the chance of you living to post-reproductive age is really good. Really, really good. Not so for birds. They have a chance of death all the time. That's why they're skittish, right? And if they want to live, they'll land in the tree, and then they'll go to your bird bath or your bird feeder. They got to look for a Cooper's hawk. Look at the feathers laying around here. Something had a meal last night. Probably red-shouldered hawks, because they nest in that sycamore right there. Okay, you want things that provide cover. You cover the ground a little bit, like they do under the oak over here. After our talk, go have a little walk. There is a ground cover over there. Beautiful plant from Catalina Island. It's over there. Go rub the leaf and smell it. You won't believe how good it smells. It's a currant. You guys had currants before? Eaten a currant? They're real big in the UK. We have species of currants here too. See, Mike's going to go lay down on the currant right now. He loves it so much. All right, that's it right there. You just rub the leaf. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. That's not the same species. The one that we eat is actually a European species, but we have like 5 or 6 species here. And that thing is terrific. That's not it in his hand. Is that a dead snake?
It's a raptor's.
Oh. Yeah, it's left over from a raptor ate a snake, and that's the remainder. That's the vertebrae.
And there was a nice little poop off to the side.
Oh.
They took their time.
Yeah. Well, you can find that here too. Okay, and then you want to provide places for living things to nest and reproduce. So for insects, butterflies like to mate on a nice plant. They don't mate in the air. They start to mate on a nice plant somewhere. Beetles will also find a nice plant to mate. All kinds of different things need a place to mate, and that usually is shrubs and trees. All right? Need to provide food for the young of what you want to bring in and the adults too. Tom's going to know this, so I'm going to ask him. Tom, we just talked about red-shouldered hawks. I know you know a lot about them, and they're beautiful. All right? What do red-shouldered hawks feed their young chicks when they're really young? Not immediately. That too, but not immediately. They're too small. What do they start with? Caterpillars. Caterpillars. All raptors feed their young caterpillars until they're big enough to eat vertebrate animals like lizards, other birds, things like that, rodents. You work them up, just like us. We don't right? You don't have a newborn and hand them a steak. It would be kind of silly. You give them things that are appropriate for their age. So raptors actually feed their young caterpillars. So therefore, you need to have plants that moths and butterflies will lay eggs on, so there are caterpillars in your yard. And then guess what? If you have these critters in your yard, they're going to eat some leaves. And I can't tell you how many people have come to me saying, "Will you help me plan a nice butterfly garden?" And I do that. And then they go, "Oh my gosh, something's eating the leaves of my salvia." And I'm excited. Yes, that's great. And they're going, "No, but they're eating my leaves." "Yeah, that means you have critters. It worked." "No, but they're eating my leaves." It's okay. That's what you wanted, isn't it? For them to come in and, right, live, lay eggs and live? Yes, you do. All right, here's a little quickie. If you see a plant and it looks fine to you, and then you get right up to it and you go, "Oh my gosh, there's some leaves eaten," is there a problem? If you can't tell at 10 to 20 feet, there's probably not a problem. You also have to define what you think a problem is. Is it okay to lose some leaves? Like a caterpillar's eating it? My gosh, I'm so thrilled. I get a moth, I get a butterfly, I get a katydid, a grasshopper, a tree cricket, which no one ever sees anymore. So they are going to eat things. Birds, some birds will snack on leaves. They'll just pluck the leaves off things and chew them up and eat them. It's okay. So we have a saying, "Plant it and they will come," and I have an appendage to that, appendix to that, but only if they can, right? So if you put in plants that will attract maybe bumblebees, maybe goldfinches, and you live in downtown Anaheim, let's see, near all the big tall buildings, or downtown LA and the tall buildings, or maybe way up high, they're not going to find you. All right? So they will if they can. So if you live here in our area, living things need to exist in adjacent areas so that they'll travel and come to your yard. All right? They're going to travel. We call these linkages. And so you put in a nice native garden. If you're not anywhere near anything native like downtown LA, you might not get one living thing coming to your garden. Turns out that's not entirely true. The Natural History Museum of LA County has been doing these incredible surveys for, my gosh, 15 years now? It's really been great. They're doing surveys for insects and their relatives and vertebrate animals in people's yards and the museum itself. They redid the museum and put in a huge native garden, and they do surveys on what things have come in, and there are all kinds of things that we never thought even lived here that are showing up in the surveys. So things do come in that we didn't even realize would come in. So that's pretty good. Just realize if you live in a place like that, you might not get anything coming in. So I once had someone attend one of these talks and say, "Okay, I have a question for you. I grow tomatoes, and I never get tomatoes. They flower, I never get tomatoes." All right. "Oh, okay. What city do you live in?" "Anaheim." "Tell me about where you live." "I'm on the 14th floor of a tall apartment complex, and I have a balcony, and my tomato plants are on my balcony." And I went, "Well, tomatoes are only pollinated by bumblebees." Can you imagine a big old heavy bumblebee flying 14 stories up in the middle of Anaheim and ending up on the balcony? No, they can't either. Not going to happen. It's too high. So the plants will flower, they will never set fruit because they are bumblebee pollinated only. So not going to happen. Okay, so in designing, you want to have a little bit of repetition, right? You don't buy one salvia, one California buckwheat, one live forever. More than one. And then put them in masses. They don't have to be giant masses, but put them together and use odd numbers. It's kind of a thing that we like to see, odd numbers instead of even numbers. Engineers like even numbers and straight lines. So you can always tell when a landscape was put in by an engineer. Like my father-in-law is an engineer, and he had one of his coworkers, another engineer, help him lay out the river rocks for a dry stream bed. They hired a landscaper for his house, and the landscaper had all these rocks delivered. He and his buddy laid out the rocks for the dry creek bed before the landscaper got there, and they were in a perfectly straight line sorted by size, which never happens in nature. The landscaper arrived and just said, "What's going on here?" And he was so proud. "Oh, I laid them all out nice and straight. Doesn't that look great?" No. We're trying for a natural looking dry creek bed, and it needs to bend a little bit. Okay, plan for form and function and select your species later. It's so tempting to come here and go, "Oh my gosh, the desert willow is in flower. I need to get one right now." No, not until you have a place for it and a design, right? Come up with those things first. Know where you're going to put it. Think about form. I want a tree over here that gets about this tall. I want it to shade the front porch. I'm okay with it being winter deciduous, dropping leaves like sycamores do. Or you might want it evergreen like oaks do. Another word for evergreen, though, is drops leaves all year. All right? So its leaves mature and then they fall off, but they're always replacing their leaves. So if you look, there's lots of leaf litter on the ground there, and there's smaller leaves. Now they decompose, and that's a good thing. Okay, install like species near other species that have similar ecological needs. So if some plants require more water, don't stick them next to a plant that can't tolerate that much water. And this happens all the time. So you need to figure out, all right, I'm going to put things here that need very little water. I'm going to put things over here that need a little bit more water. I'm going to put something here and let the garden hose leak a little bit because I like columbines, stuff like that. Plan those together, then select your species and have it on your plan, and then you go shopping. All right, so put things that like similar amounts of water, similar amounts of sun, soil, slope, because some things like to be on a hill so the water doesn't pool, like avocado trees, you may have noticed. By the way, avocado trees used to be native. They're below our feet right now. They're fossils of avocado trees down here. I'm not going to say they're native now because they died out here for a long time ago, but they do better on slopes because water doesn't accumulate. They need to be dry. They suffer some terrible fungal pathogens, especially if they get too much water. It promotes the fungus and not the tree. Okay, evergreens in the front yard are a good idea. Think about your neighbors. And I don't landscape for my neighbors, but I do think about them. I put evergreen plants in the front. I don't put winter deciduous plants in the front. People are weird. They don't want to see a naked tree in the winter. They don't. They really don't want to see a naked tree in the summer. They all assume it's dead, and so does the city, right? The city inspectors will come by. I've had a ticket before. It's like, no, I have a currant in the front yard. It drops its leaves in summer. I finally gave up, dug it up, and put it in the backyard because I'm fine seeing it with no leaves in the summer. Okay, but seasonally dormant plants are okay elsewhere, like backyard, side yard, stuff like that. But in the front, make it look good. Think about your neighbors. Think about the city, right? You want to have a good working relationship with all of those groups. All right, plan for wildlife. Provide some food for them, right? I know I want caterpillars, so I put in grapes and salvia and buckwheats because I know caterpillars love to eat all those things. By the way, plant-eating animals eat plants. I know, isn't that amazing? Plant eaters eat plants. So if you want a plant eater, first off, you got to know what things eat, right? Seed eaters eat seeds, so we all want goldfinches. They're gorgeous, all right? They're beautiful. They have a beautiful song. We have 3 species locally. And so put in things that produce a lot of seed that they can eat. Be great, like salvias. They love salvias, and they love native thistles, too. Insect eaters eat insects, and those insects come to the plants. So you put in the plant, the insects come, and then the praying mantises can come in, and they can feed on some of the insects. And that'll work, too. Lizard eaters eat lizards. Roadrunners eat lizards, mostly, and mealworms, if you want to feed them. All right, one of my buddies lives in Temecula, and he hand feeds 2 roadrunners that come to his backyard. he goes to the pet store and he buys pounds of mealworms, which are the larvae of a beetle, and feeds them. So he and his wife would put them on the edge of the patio, and the roadrunners would come over the fence. They have an open bar fence. They come over or through the fence and then feed on them and then take off. And they just got used to he and his wife. And so now they'll put them on the table on the back patio, and they'll just hop up, squawk, take some mealworms, squawk some more, take some more mealworms, and leave. It's hysterical. He posts these on Twitter. They're just hysterical. They eat a lot of lizards, but they also eat mealworms. It's great. Bird eaters eat, well, you get the idea. Okay, water. Every living thing drinks water, even spiders. Just before we started, I went over here, I filled my water bottle, but there was a spider in the sink. So I picked up the spider. I just had got a little water on my hand and then saw the spider. I picked up the spider, and it drank from my hand as I walked it over there and let it go. So spiders need to drink. Why do you find insects that come in your house? Why do they show up in the bathroom, in the kitchen? Water. They're after the water. They can detect the water. Okay, I went too fast. Oh, this is the same thing. All right, so in my bird bath, I have a water wiggler. Thank you, Wild Birds Unlimited. Love that store. And I have a drip and a water wiggler. The wiggler moves the water around. That discourages female mosquitoes from laying eggs there. And then the drip is fantastic. And then I used to have a small pond. We're re-landscaping that part of the garden right now, so the pond's not there anymore. But wow, did I get a lot of birds and lizards drinking water from that. Okay, so there's a pond. Yeah, you can have a little pond. This actually has a fountain in it. It didn't show up in the picture very well, so it's always got moving water. So you need to provide shelter and space. You want shade and cool temperatures. So plants that cast shade like this. Cover from predators, I mentioned that before, at multiple elevations. So you want some low plants, some medium, some tall. Yeah, we don't all have room for a tree that big, but there are other species of trees that aren't that big, and they happen to sell many of them here. You could ask the folks. Thing about Tree of Life, I don't work for them, by the way, just a big fan my whole life. And they'll tell you. If they don't have the right species for what you're thinking, they'll just tell you, here's a good species to use. We don't actually grow that one right now. Theodore Payne in LA has that one. Another great place. Who's been to Theodore Payne? Anybody? Oh, there you go. It's a lot of people. It's a great place too. Okay, and then reproduction and nesting sites for all kinds of living things. Here's my backyard. This is, I know it's kind of dark because I just took it real quickly. This is showing shade. So I've got a lemonade berry and a toyon next to each other. Great place. I get mostly California towhees and spotted towhees under these two. They're always raking the leaf litter, looking for things to eat. And then here is a holly leaf cherry, close to that, in the shade of a lemonade berry. So it gets sun only half day. And the fruits of that are eaten by lots of different animals. And then here is Coast Golden Bush, a fall blooming plant. We don't have a lot of fall blooming plants in our gardens typically. And then California buckwheat. And then the orange stringy stuff is California dodder, a parasite, a native parasite that they evolve with that I really love. I love this plant a lot. I introduced it to my yard. It's great stuff. We have 5 species of it in Orange County alone. Look at my book. Okay, a little bit of maintenance. Leave the leaves. Things like leaves. Have some mulch and no mulch areas. Have some bare areas of soil. And I'll show you why in a minute, because you need to keep it open for native ground nesting bees. How many species of bees are there in the world that we know of so far? 20,000 species of bees in the world. Yeah, about 2,000 in North America, about 800 California, about 400 of those locally. Locally. Okay, that's a lot of bees. What's the one bee species you know really well? European honeybee, which is not from here. Right? English dandelions are also not from here. They're weeds. European honeybee, not from here. It's gotten away out of our cultivation, and it is now a weed. It's all over the place. It steals nectar and pollen that native species need. It's not a good thing to have European bees show up in your yard. It's like having English dandelions show up in your lawn, or any kind of garden. Oh no, what's that doing here? Right? We want the native bees. There's so many native bees. California's got about 12 native species of bumblebee. That's a lot of bumblebees. Okay. European honeybees nest in little white boxes, right? And then they'll send out their own swarms once in a while too, but they won't persist very long, okay? So they live in little white boxes. Everybody else, almost everybody else, lives in a hole in the ground all by themselves, not in a group. Right here, like here's the ground showing here's some leaf litter, right? Native bees are not going to nest in that, except bumblebees. They nest in leaf litter. If you rake up all your leaf litter, you are not going to have bumblebees. Some plants like white sage are only pollinated by bumblebees and carpenter bees, you know, the big guys. So you can move some of that aside and promote native bees. These are actual native bee nests. One hole per female. That's not a group like in a European honeybee white box. They don't live like that. 7 species of bees on the planet live like that, in little white boxes or a natural equivalent. 7 out of the 20,000. So most are like this. I can go anywhere. I can go right here in this property and show you ground nesting bees just the other side of that building there, just the other side. There's a path over there. There's a bunch of ground nesting bees on the trail right there. And you can see them. They don't look too exciting, do they? There's some holes in the ground, and they're not very big holes. But if you stay there long enough, you'll see the bees go in and out. And if you check out their flowering plants here, you will see those bees. Okay, in maintenance, some people like to say, you know, I want these insects, I don't want these ones, or I want these butterflies, and I don't want these lizards, or, you know, whatever. All right, so people call a lot of things a pest that really aren't. So what some people call pests, insects, nearly all of those are non-native insects feeding on non-native plants. Isn't that wild? Non-native insects feeding on non-native plants. Aphids on roses. Those aphids are not native here. Those roses are not native here. Pesticides, you don't need them. You don't need them. Yard pests are usually not in large numbers in your yard, right? Unless you want to grow fruits and vegetables. I can't help you there because I'm doing habitat gardening, not fruit and vegetable. I buy mine at farmers markets. All right, that's their problem. So lizards, birds, spiders, and many insects also eat insects. Well, now people have asked me, what do you mean there's no bad pests? What about those ants? They're everywhere. They get in my kitchen. Those are non-native ants. They're non-native ants. They're from Argentina, so they're called Argentine ants. And they're horrible. Yes, they're outside and inside. They're horrible. You don't want them, all right? But they're non-native. Aphid, scales, and mealybugs, those species that are problems, they are non-native. Some people use botanicals. That means a plant-derived insecticide. Neem is one. The name of the plant is neem, so they call it neem oil. Yeah, it works. Also, they use horticultural soaps. It is a soap that mixed with water drowns insects, but realize that all of these also kill what you would call good insects. All of these kill ladybird beetles too, lacewings, all your predators, monarch butterflies, all of these kill them too. There is no such thing as a pesticide that just kills one kind of insect. It doesn't exist. So you go out, I'm spraying for aphids here. All right, you just killed your praying mantises and your ladybird beetles and your June beetles and everything else that you, all the butterflies, so much for a butterfly garden, gone. Kills lizards, will kill you if you get enough of it. Ants, okay, Argentine ants, horrible. Don't use sprays, right? If you want to get rid of Argentine ants, you use a bait, not a spray. That's the one thing that you might want to use pesticides on. But don't spray. That's how you get the non-target things and you kill your ladybirds. You put in a bait, and Amdro makes a fine one. It's ground up corn coated with an insecticide, which is actually a growth regulator that they take back to the nest and feed to the queen, and now she can't lay eggs anymore. Ta-da, then the colony dies out. Okay, so that's a great thing to use. And there are other baits that do have real pesticides in them, but they go back and they feed it to the queen. She doesn't go out to feed, they have to bring her food. All right, now there are some good plant choices here. We're gonna look at some stuff. I like to call these the successful six. These are great plants to use. They make great garden. Buckwheats of all kinds, lemonade berry, sugar bush, laurel sumac, toyon, and hollyleaf cherry. These are great plants. Good luck killing them. Even people with a brown thumb will have no trouble keeping these alive. They are rock solid performers here in Southern California. They're amazing. Here is California buckwheat, all right? If you're a real Californian, you have California buckwheat in your gardens. It is a fantastic plant. Everything loves to eat it and take nectar from it. Lizards live under it. They're just beautiful plants. Here is Santa Cruz Island buckwheat from the Channel Islands. By the way, everything on the Channel Islands grows great here. Everything from Channel Islands I put in my yard does great. It's a great place. Beautiful buckwheat. Turns this beautiful reddish brown when they go to fruit. They're fantastic. Also, gray coast or ash leaf buckwheat, which grows closer to the coast. They do better when there's fog cover. So Laguna Beach, Laguna Niguel, Aliso Viejo, Corona del Mar, all these places, Dana Point, San Clemente, this does great there. I'm in Mission Viejo. It struggles a little bit because it likes a fog cover, and we don't quite get enough fog for it, but I'm growing it anyway. Some general nectar and pollen plants. Well, buckwheats provide those for everything. Toyon does. Beard tongues, sages, mints, bladderpod, lotus and brooms, California lilacs. These are fantastic plants as well. Some specialty ones, things like Western sea purslane, which is our only native ice plant. Those big old ice plants at the coast, non-native. They're from South Africa. They need to go. They're terrible. We do have a native ice plant. It's got a beautiful, kind of off magenta flower, and butterflies love it. They love to nectar from it. It's just hard to find because the non-native ice plant has crowded it out in many places, but it's in cultivation. You can buy them. Mallows, which are related to hibiscus, by the way. We have several native species. Native bees love them. California sunflower, the only plant native to North America that's grown worldwide. That's the same sunflower. You know, the ones that are mutants, that have the seed head, the flower head this big, right? Same species, but they're native here. I just went out in the wild and grabbed some seeds off one that had gone to seed and threw them in my yard, and they come up in my yard, and I have things going after them all the time. They're beautiful plants. Okay, monkey flowers, fantastic plant for your yard. Coast golden bush in the fall, right? Important to provide nectar in the fall. Especially important for monarch butterflies that are migrating here to spend the winter. They need to eat, and we typically don't provide enough fall blooming plants for them to feed on, and it's a big problem. So coast golden bush blooms in the fall. A lot of buckwheats bloom in the fall. Baccharis, mule fat and coyote brush, those things. California sand aster and anything in the lotus clade in the pea family, great things. Food plants that provide great leaves that things can feed on, buckwheats. Encelia, like California bush sunflower and desert bush sunflower. Grapes, hummingbird moths. There's a hummingbird moth. That's a big moth whose caterpillar only eats grapes. I'm always thrilled when I find the caterpillars on my grapes. That's the only reason I grow the grapes, is for those. And tree crickets are on there too. They're just lovely. Okay, here's a few local critters. Here is a beautiful differential grasshopper feeding on buckwheat right up here at off the San Juan Trail. Beautiful thing. And then here is a katydid. We have about 5 species of katydids. They're lovely things. Here is a monarch butterfly laying an egg and a queen butterfly emerging from the chrysalis. Both of these are here. They feed on, of course, milkweeds. In the fall, we get these guys. This is the painted arachnus moth. Look at those colors. Isn't that gorgeous? It is a beautiful moth. You know those big black furry woolly bear caterpillars? That's the adult. They're lovely. Out in Anza-Borrego, you get things like this, like a hummingbird moth flying in the daytime, feeding on this tomato relative that is in cultivation. Here is that big caterpillar from my grapes. It is enormous. It's so beautiful. And then here is a beautiful native bee. Okay, top that. Look how gorgeous that thing is. It's like seeing a trogon. It's just so beautiful, you can't believe it exists. So beautiful. Another species of it. Close-up of it on milkweed. They like everything. These are asleep. These are sunflower bees, and they sleep head down with their little butts up in common sunflower. I took this photo while standing on my driveway. Right? This is not exotic. They're right here. And then you get great lizards like the most common lizard in all of California, northwestern fence lizard. They're everywhere, all over my yard. Common side blotch lizard. I think they're allergic to cameras. Every time I try to photograph these guys, boom, and they're gone. But you can tell it's a side blotch because under their armpit, they've got a dark spot. And I usually see it as they run away. So I had to borrow a picture out of a field guide. Okay, and then some feathery guys. California scrub jay. Who doesn't love this bird? California scrub jay. They're big, they're bold, they're beautiful. They've got that sassy white eyebrow. Can't miss them. They're just fantastic birds. A lot of personality. You want these in your yard. They're fantastic. Hooded oriole. I had to borrow this picture from from Cornell. Thank you. Gorgeous oriole. They nest in tall trees. They love fruit. This is clematis, also called Virgin's Bower. It's a vine outside my kitchen window that I put there, and it's kind of scraggly looking, but wow, is it pretty. So if you look at this photo, can you see it? There's somebody in there. So if you view it up close, you'll see there is a little wren right in the middle. Look at that little guy. There he is. He's got his bill and his white stripe. Oh yeah, who doesn't want wrens waking them up at 4 in the morning? Okay, they're just gorgeous little birds, and they're always moving. Not a great photo. Pardon? They are bossy. They're always telling you, get out of my garden. Yeah, what are you doing in my garden? And then, of course, Anna's hummingbirds. They're all over the place. I'm particularly fond of Allen's hummingbird. Okay, it's the most beautiful hummingbird in the world. All right, a couple weeks ago, Laura gave a great talk on hummers. And then there's this animal. Now, we don't have the next one locally, but it has been documented, and I got a photo of it from the person who lives here. All right, wait for it. Okay. You have to be really quiet when you see these in the wild. Okay, so where do you get stuff? Well, you get stuff at, hey, you're here. Tree of Life Nursery, right? Largest native plant nursery in the state and the most awesome. And it's not just because Mike and I met when we were teenagers. I've known him. He actually gave a talk in a horticulture class I had in high school. He's just a few years older. He still was a teenager. Okay, so Tree of Life, great place. Hey, inspired, want help designing a yard? Guess what? They have a designer on staff, Randy Gunder. I don't think she's here today, but she is wonderful and very talented. Have a chat. Okay, need some great stuff. Wild Birds Unlimited, they're over there off Alicia. All right, great place to go. And then, of course, you must have binoculars if you want to see your wildlife. You don't need a top-of-the-line set of binocs to watch wildlife, especially in your yard. But you just should have a pair of binoculars. This is the, I forgot what it is, Minolta papilios. It's a little tiny binoc that focuses really close. So you can get close to things, or you can be far away. It doesn't matter. They're a little over $100. I know that's some money, but it's affordable. And binoculars are things that are not disposable. You buy binoculars once, your whole life, and if you treat them well, you're fine. You could upgrade your binocs later if you want, but your binocs will last you your whole life, right? It's a better investment than a car. Car's going to die someday. Binocs aren't going to die unless you beat them on the floor. Okay, thank you very much for coming to my talk.